and like horseradish. Horseradish. Everyone.
Hello, everyone. And I'm like, I'm gonna click live, and everyone will think, what are they talking about?
Right. Yeah. So, what else is in it? Ginger and man, there's not a lot in it to make this fire cider, but then apple cider vinegar, you put a little bit inside of it. Anyways, if anyone's interested in what I'm talking about, it's called fire cider, and it's supposed to help your immune system. Once I find the recipe, I can post it in the group for everyone to see, because it is supposed to help transform your colds, your flus, your illnesses, just transform your immune system as well. So, and it's natural.
And we can use a little bit of that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, let me click record. Now, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Heal the Unicorn podcast with Bethany Briggs and myself, Yana Kasperczak. So today's topic that we have for you is when you assume, you make an ass of you and me. And this is the phrase that was said to me a few times throughout my life, and I thought this was a trigger kind of in a way every time somebody would say that. But as I grew, I realized that there is actually a lot of power in this simple lesson, because this is wisdom put it in one sentence, even though there's like sassiness in it. But if you break it down, the word assuming, as you, me, right? As of you and me, I guess is how kind of broke it down. But anyways, so that is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking today about assumptions and how these assumptions that we all create as we go through life, how they affect our life in the positive or negative way, right? How we experience life currently, presently, as we are. And if we don't like it, there'll be options for you to then shift and change to the one that you do desire and prefer more, where you find yourself feeling more comfortable, using your intuition, which we talked about last month, which is your gut feeling, and then using your wisdom, which is whether it's learned or tapped into, using all the other tools that we have been talking about last month and the previous week. So check out those videos as well. Just go, you'll find them all in the YouTube channel and Bethany Unicorn Academy. Just go down, you'll see like the latest videos and stuff like that. So assumptions. Let's start with, what are they? Right? What are assumptions? And I'm just gonna read my most favorite, my mind today, guys, in case you're wondering why is she not able to put her words together. I am stuffed. Sleeping with a window open is not recommended. In the cold, the nights are still cold, so we forgot a window at night, and I've known myself to be sensitive to that my whole entire life, where it's just a massive breeze, and here I am in a plus going outside, like, I can handle this cold when I haven't trained for it. Anyways, assumption is an expectation that because something has happened in the past, it will happen again. That is what an assumption is. And it takes, a lot of it happens subconsciously, where we just like intuitively know or sense that, oh, this is what could happen. If this happened in the past, this is going to happen again. And a lot of assumptions are also important because they keep us safe. And this is where, as we go through this video, I want to invite everyone to take the time to list them and write them down, all the assumptions that come to you, those that keep you safe and those that are preventing you from either moving forward or living your best life, or enjoying your life, that those that are keeping you in a box or small in some way or another. So yeah, this is kind of like workshop style stuff we do in these videos, where you decide what you want to do the work on. For you, might just be information, and you're just getting information for yourself. For other people, it might be, I'm actually going to do the work and see what's in there and learn. So this is what Heal Unicorn podcast also bring. It's not just information, it's also action in there, because mini crash courses are life changers, and that's what we are here for. So before we go any further, Bethany, give us your understanding of assumptions, and perhaps maybe your experience and anything else that you feel like you were taking notes on.
Yeah. Well, I was actually, I pulled out one of my binders. This is where I've worked a lot of my assumptions through when they come up. I come to this lovely binder. It's from Law of Being. So if you're interested in Law of Being, hit up Yana. She can help you with that. But assumptions, to me, that's the stuff like your definition is exactly how I feel it is. You know, it's the stuff that happened in the past that you automatically think is going to happen again if you do something similar to what happened. And I've noticed, actually recently, I will give you a perfect example, well, an imperfectly perfect example of something recently, an assumption that I came up with. So this assumption that was, I have no progress, I'm in the same spot. Well, I had to really sit there and think about it. And I had been doing a lot of inner work. And then I was meditating. This was on Sunday, and I was doing like a day of self-care and self-love, where I was just like being in nature and doing all those things that help bring joy and bring bliss and bring peace to my soul and balance. And so during this, that assumption came out, because this week is about assumptions. And so a lot of the times when with our podcasts, we go through similar things coming up to our podcast episode, which some people would be like, oh my God, that's horrible. But to me, I'm like, that's wonderful, because now I have something to share with you guys, an example, an experience that I went through, so I could share my wisdom with you. So with this no progress,
total preparation is what I would call it. Like,
yes,
we're going through it in preparation, as like a perfect example that we've talked about this very often, is what you think about becomes what you go through, what you focus on.
right.
And by us focusing on this topic, we're also going through it in our own life and experiencing it, so we're able to bring these real life in the moment examples.
Exactly. Yeah. So with this real life example, no progress, for the assumption, no progress, I'm in the same spot. Well, I did a dive deep, and I looked about two things that I'm passionate about: my writing and my yoga. So I did some calculations, because I keep track. And this is a really good opportunity for those of you that want to do the same thing that I did, because of my realization that's coming from it. It really helps to see your progress, to see your accomplishments, to see like how far you came. It's easier to see that mountain you're climbing when you're actually on that mountain and you can't see it like with your eyes. But anyways, so I looked to my writing. So I've written at this point 768 poems, quotes, affirmations. And let's say I took about 10 minutes each day to write. Well, that's 8,000 plus hours of writing. And I have more on top of it. This is just the low end average. And then I went to my yoga, and I was like, okay, well, I've been practicing it every day for 2 years, 273 days. Okay, and let's do 30 minutes a day at the low end, the low average. And that came out to 30,000 plus hours of yoga that I've practiced. And so instantly I was like, that assumption is wrong. Like, look at all this progress. Look at all this accomplishment. Like, I am not in the same spot. Look at all the knowledge, all the growth, and all the learning I went through. So I was able to reframe and turn around that assumption that was holding me back. And then So I went to my compassion with it, because a lot of the times when when we're working on our deep self and all of these dark things come up, these mean phrases that our inner critic likes to throw at us, or that we've learned, and we like, oh, well, it's safe, don't do that, the things that are holding us back. If we meet it with compassion, we can get so much well-being. You can get so much comfort from that, because what is compassion? It's love, it's kindness, it's the opposite of anger. It's caring, helping, and giving with healthy boundaries. Now I say healthy boundaries because if you don't have boundaries to keep yourself safe, then you're going to let people walk all over you. And it also helps with these boundaries for your confidence and for just your inner peace as well. So you giving and caring and helping with healthy boundaries, willingness to help bring comfort to others and yourself, but with those healthy boundaries. It's also connecting and treating others as you would like to be treated. And then also treating yourself as you would like others to treat you. And working with assumptions, working with compassion is a really good medicine, a really good tool to combat assumptions, even like inner critic stuff that we talked about last week. Compassion, because you're being there for yourself, or you're being there for someone else, and you never know if you're going to change your day around just by showing yourself compassion, which yes, you will change your day around, but you don't know until you try it, and you don't know whose day you're going to turn around by showing compassion to. And I just so with compassion and assumptions, they have a really close spot to each other, because especially with my example of no progress, I'm in the same spot. It was like, girl, hey, look at all this, love yourself, come on, it's okay. And up to that point, I was dealing with a lot of inner work with my binge eating addiction, and changing my old pattern, that old eating pattern, to the new pattern. So I'd also been going through a lot of work already. So at that moment, when that assumption came up, I just went straight to compassion, because it was just like, that's all that I can do for myself right now. It was to do love for myself. And also when you're dealing with assumptions, if all you can do is give yourself a little bit of love, give yourself a little bit of kindness, it will help the healing, and it'll help you grow, and it'll help you expand, and it'll help you learn. Yeah, I have other examples of assumptions that I've worked through. Like there's one where no one listens to me. And I found myself actually the other day saying this, no one listens to me, but that's not true. I have a lot of people that listen to me, and everyone in my home does listen to me. But with that assumption, I've had that in the past where I haven't been feeling heard or seen or loved. Some of those core things that us as individuals desire, and really for our well-being, it helps us with balance. And so with the no one's listening to me, that assumption was coming from times in the past when I just felt like I wasn't heard or seen. And breaking down that assumption is just an even more powerful thing, because you're going to hit your confidence. You're going to hit your deep self as well. And then another one, I guess, it's like I dealt with a lot of anxiety in the past, and an assumption I had was that everyone was out to get me. I would assume the worst in people. Why? Because I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel secure. I didn't feel supported. I felt like, oh my goodness, because one incident happened, now I'm never safe again. And what happened is a couple years ago, I moved to a new house, and not this house, it was a house before this one. And we had an incident where there was a shooting at a school, and they were really close to my house. And he actually happened to be hiding right close to my house the whole time. And then not too long after that, we had someone throw a golf ball out our window and shatter the window. And so my security was so shaken. And that was when I was starting my spiritual awakening journey. So I was a hot mess. I was a whole 180 away from this. Like I was just a total different person where I am today. And I'm so grateful for my growth. But this also shows me with my assumption I was telling you before about there's no progress. That assumption is 100% wrong. It is not true. There is no truth to it. But assuming the worst in people came from a past situation that happened at a whole different place, a whole different house, not even at the house I'm at. And it took me a long time to work through that assumption. But once I did, my security has been at an all-time high. I feel like my roots, my roots, it's your root chakra. That's your sense of security. My roots have been so strong and sturdy. And yes, I have my moments where I'm shaken. Everyone will. But I'm able to come back and get grounded and centered and find my balance a lot quicker now. And the sense of security is a lot strong. I don't see the worst in people anymore as well. And I'm able to have more connections. And compassion is another thing that comes into here, because when you assume the worst, I'm not showing compassion. I am showing, just hate in a way, just the opposite of compassion. So coming back to those situations, and when I revisit them, when it would used to trigger me, like when I'd have someone walk by my house and then I'd be like, oh my God, what are they doing? Like watching them, like they're just walking down the street. Like, what are you doing? But because of the past situation, I assumed that everyone was out to get me. And my inner critic, or my gremlin, Gretchen, she was damaged. She was hurting from it. And I didn't acknowledge that. And that goes back to last week, how we were talking about inner critic and the gremlin. So if you're interested more in that, go back to last week so you can fill yourself in. But it also came from that. And it was really powerful to work through it. And now I can say, like, yes, it was hard when it was going on, when I was working through them, but the freedom and the lightness and the brightness that I feel now is totally worth the hardship. It was me putting my integrity first and choosing courage instead of holding myself back, and choosing compassion as well.
Yeah. I want to say thank you for sharing all those examples. And at the same time, it brought up a great reminder is that within these assumptions, we can also find our values. So one of the values that I heard you talk about is the value of being heard, and how you got to that. Like growing up wasn't really, most of us can relate to this. We were more like, you're meant to be seen and not heard. Please be quiet. Please shush, right? You're embarrassing me and things like that. And it causes us to feel like, okay, well, what's the point of speaking up? What's the point of saying anything when nobody listens, nobody hears, and it becomes our value. Like, I value those people and those experiences where I feel heard, where I feel understood, where I feel that creates the safety as well. One of the things we had been talking about, I'm not sure if we've mentioned it in one of the videos or not, where we talk about the feminine and the masculine. And we all, females and males, have feminine and masculine. And if you want to bring out the feminine out of your woman, you gotta do things that will bring that out. And that is all the things that will help her to feel heard, loved, supported, understood, and validated. And the same thing goes for men. But men, most importantly, they want to be respected. Women want to be loved. Men do as well. But for women, they need that reassurance and that love, and they need to see it and feel it. And men, they need to be respected. So now talking about assumptions. The assumptions that many women and men make are also based on the sheer science of who they were born to be. And also as you grow, you become more either feminine or masculine, or you find a balance in between, right? And all of us are different. None of us are alike. We are similar, but we're not the same. So how we process things is going to be different. But essentially, for women, we often make assumptions around our values, our core needs, and nobody listens to me, nobody cares to hear what I say. I've what's the point of saying things? These are all also level one energy, and thoughts and conversations that we have with ourselves, which are legitimate because this is the assumption that has been made past based on your past experiences, because in the past you would speak up and you would say things. Here's another perfect example. We all have a friend who complains about things and whines about things, and you're giving them tips and tricks and suggestions, and I learned this and this and that, and they're still not doing anything with it, and they continue going with it. So then we all arrive at an assumption, either that is based around them, like they're just stupid, they don't get it, and they assume, well, what's the point of me then talking about it and sharing this stuff, because nobody cares. Even though it's just one person, we right away go, nobody cares. Or I do everything, right? It's like you do one thing and all of a sudden you do everything, and it's like, no, 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 no. Define everything. But it's like, well, it's this one thing or this one time. It's like, come on, sweetheart, that ain't everything. Right? But our mind is so quick to categorize things because it's easier that way. It's like the baskets, good and the bad basket, right? You have this experience, and right away it goes into this basket. And then when you have similar things that are happening in your life, at this point, it becomes subconscious program that you're not even aware. And this is what Bethany was talking about with her examples, that uncovering a subconscious program to then, okay, well, I see you. Now, what do I want to do with you? And what do you actually mean? What are you trying to say? And like becoming a little scientist, or let's call it not scientist. It's actually, you become a scientist and you become a surgeon where you're dissecting it, right? And you're like, oh, there goes the heart. We're going to hang it here. Here's the lungs, right? And you're really going through every little part of this new awareness that you have. And then that this puzzle all of a sudden makes sense, and you put it on the wall that is called who I am, right? Who you are. And the more you have on that wall, and the more puzzle pieces that you have, that you work through, that you know, here it is. Now you're doing the work through it, not, get past it or go around it. There's none of that. It's you are going through it, healing through it, and then you become aware of what it is. Because otherwise, the who is, I've never done any of these puzzles, nor would I want to, but I've heard that they exist. This puzzle that is like every piece is one color and one tone with like no different tones in it. So like, just imagine right now, the who might feel like just a black puzzle piece. And what you're doing as you're going through this journey called life and becoming aware of this new thing, which often is uncomfortable, it rarely is comfortable. It gets to that point where things become very comfortable, where you're aware of this new thing and it's like, oh my God, let's do this. This is fun. But it takes time to get there. But it's a fun journey. If you practice looking at the brighter side of things, and then it becomes easier. So another thing I wanted to mention about assumptions is that we do all become product of our belief system. And an assumption is a certain belief, which also often can be tied into limiting beliefs, which we'll be getting into. I believe it's the last week of
next week, but the week after.
Yeah. So, because we have Gail. Yeah, limiting beliefs is gonna be last because it's um going that way. So a lot of the assumptions can also fall under the umbrella of limiting beliefs because our assumptions, they do limit us in some ways. But it's more specific to like, this is what happened in the past. And because of that, my life is ruined, type of a thing, right? Or this is what's always going to happen. So I guess what would be an example? An example might be, or I'll give you a perfect example. Those of you that are entrepreneurs or influencers, or that are, just sharing your life or your journey online. If you have gone through an experience like I have, so I'm going to use my example and then share my assumption with you. So my assumption was that everyone who's on the other side of the screen is an asshole and is out to get me and just want to pick everything apart that I'm putting out there. Now, the experience that I had, and this assumption actually is just multi-layered. It comes through in different ways. So every time it comes through in this way, I'm like, I gotta work through it. And it comes through in a different way, like with different phrases, but similar thing. It's like another word to describe it is you can say one sentence, but you can say it in many different ways, right? You can take one experience and you can say it in many different ways, and it becomes like these freaking waves that you gotta ride for each one. So what happened with me is I just got introduced to network marketing, and I was part of the company that was about weight loss. I embraced it completely, full on, head on, and um it helped me to really grow and heal. And as I was going through this healing journey and starting to feel better about myself and proud of myself, and posting about these products and my journey, my transformation of 13 pounds lost in a month, which was all done just following the system and working through, working in my mindset. I shared it in one of these local buy and sell groups. These were the times when we were allowed to do that. I haven't done it in, I don't even know how long, but anyways, because I don't do that anymore. And what happened was, so I shared my before and after picture, and then this one woman, and this is where it hurts that it comes from women, because I'm in the space where I'm all about supporting, encouraging other females, no matter what they're doing. And what she did in supporting me, and at the same time look at me, how awesome I am. I'm gonna shit on your parade, and try to, basically, this is what she did. She took my picture and she said that this picture is altered, and you changed it all, and this is fake. This stuff doesn't work. And I'm just like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, I don't do techie, not my thing, not my, like, I don't even know filters. That's the only thing I've learned how to do on stories, and that's about it. Whenever I do a story, or on TikTok, there's like different filters. But other than that, and this is like 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, when that happened. So for me, like, that's not my thing, right? And then I, try to stand up for myself and say, no, I am, like, I don't, that's not the language that I speak. I don't know how to even like do anything on my phone. If you even ask me to write on the picture, it'll be just like the one with the finger and it doesn't write properly. Anyways, so then she goes, this is what I do for a living. I can tell that you altered these pictures, takes my picture, circles all the areas where I've actually improved and lost the weight and worked on all the common areas, ladies, right? Around here, around the side and the sides, right? Around like the butt, under the butt, and like all the areas where you actually start losing the weight when you're losing the weight, which is more like common sense, but she circles all these areas. And I'm just sitting there. I have never ever felt as naked as I felt in that moment. And complete terror went through my body. Even though like none of this was true, she was just bullying me online, and I could not believe this was happening to me. And that was one of the most severe experiences that I have had online, and that shit will traumatize people. And then obviously I'm going to create some kind of assumption, even on the healing journey where I am now. Things like that happen, I'll be able to work through, but in the way, in the subconscious, there might still be some stuff that I haven't fully worked through, that will this leech will latch onto.
Mhm.
So assumptions, they are nothing really that we are working through is linear, is what I'm saying. There's no A to B. It's like A to Z, but it's not a straight line. It's like going like this, so throughout, and loops, loop-de-loops, and it's a roller coaster ride. But that journey, like Bethany said, is so worth it, because when we get to the other side, and the other side could happen within minutes, within hours, within days, within weeks, within months, the other side is feeling better and being able to, climb in that mountain like you were talking about. As you're climbing it, you don't see the mountain. You see it when you're about to climb, and it's like, oh fuck, that's a mountain. And then you start climbing, and it's like, oh, okay, this is not so bad, without looking to the top, because you can't see. And then you climbing it, and then once you're up there, you look back at your past, where you've been, and say, fuck, I did all that, and I am still alive. Oh my God, how much have I learned? Talk
Right.
about a unicorn, right? So this is a moment to really turn around, do the 180. This is why we use 180, because if you're doing 360, you're coming right back to where you started. 180 is like you turn around and you're different, right? So when you do the 180 and you look down of what you have done, your accomplishments, talk about vision boards. Start with your accomplishments boards, okay? Another thing I help people do. Really, really fun. But accomplishments boards are the shit. We all need those reminders of the things that we survived,
Mhm.
that we got through, that we overcame, things that we learned. Uh, I'm not talking about just about diplomas here. Like that list can be, for me on that list is surviving the death of my twins, right? Surviving the labor of giving birth to them, and the whole entire process, right? Surviving those, surviving depression, having been in the place where I was making plans and having ideas of what I wanted to do and how it was going to end. For me, that's not something I actually have talked about very often. Bethany, I can see you like, I don't know, we talked about this, but I realized I haven't been talking about that darkest part of my past. And I'm kind of skipping through it because I don't want anyone to hang on this kind of stuff. But that's where I've been. And going through that, and then going through it on meds, and then going through it without meds, and learning the natural, holistic, healthy way of approaching everything, including healthy boundaries, like Bethany mentioned numerous times today. You want to live a better life, it starts from inside, and that's where the conversation started, from the inside, with the fire vinegar or something.
Oh yeah, the fire cider vinegar. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, and at the same time, I want everyone to, here's another example. I want everyone to really understand more of assumptions and start identifying them and listing them. Another assumption is I can't have a conversation about childcare with my partner because the last time I tried, it caused a big fight.
That's a big one, yeah.
I can't quit sugar because my last diet failed. Like this one is huge because, my last diet failed. I can't quit sugar because of that, even though sugar might not have necessarily been a part of that, but it becomes something. Launching this product during the holiday season is a bad idea because our last holiday launch didn't meet our target. So things like that, and recognizing how it shows up, right? And then asking the main question. I love this question. So ask yourself this question with each assumption that you're working through: is just because this happened in the past. What makes you think that it's going to happen again?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that was dramatic pause. But just because it happened in the past, what makes you think that it's going to happen again? And that question can feel confrontational sometimes. And that's why by starting to ask that question of yourself and confronting yourself and not running away from the answer will be the first step. And then you can insert what possible values might be coming through or seeping through this assumption. Starting to recognize more of who you are in your assumption.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn a lot of who you are by dissecting all these things that are coming up, and then you get the puzzle of the pieces that are making sense, and you can see the connections. And from that point on, every puzzle, the first few puzzles are always the hardest to identify and see, but after that is just like next. This is fun. What's the next one, right? And then the who just grows and grows and grows, and then we start to feel more free and free and free and free. So it's internally is where it starts, and externally is where it's experienced. I mean, it's experienced inside, but you get to see what's happening on the inside, outside.
Right. You know, there's another assumption that I wanted to talk about, one that I had. I don't have assumptions.
Yeah, I had that one too. I'm like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, because of a statement because of our title. When you assume, it makes an ass out of you and me. So I'm like, oh, I don't assume because of that title. But going through the law of being, I came up with a lot of assumptions, and I've taken it twice, and each time more assumptions come up. And then just Sunday, another one came up. So it's like there are assumptions because it's a natural thing that happens in life. And if you don't work on it when it comes up and you don't have resilience through it, well, it's just going to get buried, and it's just going to be there, and it's going to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. Like with that whole assumption for me, I assume the worst in people. They're out to get me. Everyone's wishing bad on me. It really came from a place of anxiety and a place of worry. And I used to be a huge worry wart. And so it opened my eyes to how, okay, well, I'm living in this world of what if, okay, what if, and it's like the same thing you ask that question. What makes you think it's going to happen again? And when I ask myself those questions with those assumptions, it's like, all right, I see you. Because with the whole thing from Sunday with I don't have progress, in the past with other accomplishments, I felt that way. And then I stopped doing it. Like when I was younger, I played volleyball, and then I didn't feel like I was a good player. So I stopped playing volleyball because I had the assumption I wasn't good at it. It came from a place of me not working through stuff as well. And so a lot of assumptions come from the stuff you haven't worked through, because assumptions is a really big, like, it has a lot to do with your internal, your emotional side of things. A lot, like, big and deep. And so with that, I don't have assumptions. Well, that is false. And if you're thinking the same thing, I just challenge you to dig deep and to think about, maybe there's a phrase that keeps going on in your mind, or you keep saying, like it was that one for me, no one listens to me, or, there's no progress. I'm in the same spot. I had to put a connection, like, well, I keep saying this. Well, what does this mean? And like diving deep and going within, like you were saying, Yana, what I was saying earlier, it's just helps us bring out those things for awareness and clarity. And then we're able to work through it, and we can learn from it. And then we go on to the next one, like you said. And that's the beautiful thing about this journey of life, is there's so much to work through. that we've gone through in our own experiences, and then we can share that with other people so it could help them with their experiences, and maybe they don't have to experience what you did because they learned from you actually, and they're like, oh, I don't want to have that assumption, or I don't want to have that belief from my inner critic. Like, I'm going to work on that now, and I'm going to change so I can be the best version of myself. And that's what I love doing. I love learning from other people. And that's why I like being on the podcast and leading my yoga, because then I can share, and I can share my magic, and I can, like, 'cause I guess the good way to think about it is I've received a lot. Now I want to give. I want to start giving, because there's a balance. You want to have a balance to give and receive, but with healthy boundaries. Remember the boundaries.
Exactly.
But yeah, and that thing I talked about with worrying, that was a realization I had with the assumptions, with the anxiety. And that was a huge realization to shift a lot. I think that's all I was getting at with that. So I just challenge you to dig deep. Anyone that thinks that they don't have this part of you, you do. It's there. There's no way to get around it. Because in the past, I can tell you, I have that statement. I don't have assumptions, and that right there, it just tells you that it wasn't true, because I stated 3, 4, or 5 examples of assumptions that I've dealt with and worked through. And sometimes they come up, but that's when I see my growth and my healing. And I'm like, oh, wow, there's that golden nugget. There's that wisdom to it. Mm-hmm. So that also comes out of it as well, as you're going on through your journey, to just really paying attention to each moment and being in the moment while you're working through stuff. So when that trigger, that trauma, that assumption or limited belief or whatever comes up, that inner critic statement, you're able to be like, see how you're handling it. And a lot of the times when you work through something, it's going to be 100 times better, because you're going to have a tool, you're going to have medicine now that can help you work through it and reframe that thought that's going on in your mind, to where, I lost my train of thought there. Oh man. Maybe it just wasn't meant to be. Yeah, it's not coming back. Well, whatever it was, I think that's all for the message on that. Whatever it is, if it comes back, I'll brush up on it more. But just, you're worth it, and dig deep, find those little things, because it will transform your life.
Yeah, our life is not built on big things. It's built on little things that we do each and every day, or little things that we don't do each and every day. It's those things that you become aware, you feel a certain way, and that's where your awareness comes. Our feelings, our emotions are speaking to us. Our body's always speaking to us. And unfortunately, we more often than not don't listen to what it's saying to us. And when you have an interaction with someone and you feel a certain way, do you pause and dissect and figure out why you felt that way? No, why you really truly felt that way? That was nothing to do with that person, anything to do with them, but you yourself. Because when you're feeling a certain way, it has nothing to do with them, it has everything to do with you. Everything of who you are, if you're being triggered, that's you, that's not them. They're just there, trying to, like, their part, everyone's part in our journey, everyone that is part of our journey, everyone that we meet is there to help us become the best version of ourselves. And by being triggered, and they have absolutely no idea that they have triggered you, because they're not you, they are an entirely different human, different world of existence. Their thought process, their experiences, the way they speak, the way they not necessarily breathe, but and the way they breathe is different, right? Everything that they are is different. So, and they have absolutely no idea. They have some ideas of how they could trigger you, but that's based on their experiences and their assumptions. But for you, if you're feeling that way, it's just an opportunity to know more of who you are in relation to this human, in
Mhm.
relation to that human, in relation to this experience and that experience, that helps to see that puzzle of who am I much more clearly. And instead, what most do, which is a subconscious program, is they react to that experience of discomfort. And therefore, they do not learn from it, because part of that is, I know everything. Don't tell me, I'm going to tell you, right? It's in the way part of us being as children, when we also learned this from our parents, is, I know, I know, I know, I know, I know. I hear this from my kids all the time. My almost 9-year old and my 12-year old. I know, I know, I know, I know. I know, mommy, I know how this works. You do not know how this works, dude.
Right.
Like, you have never done this. You don't know. But okay, well, tell me what you know about this. Please help me understand, right? So, oh, okay, and then nothing, right? And
Mhm.
then this is where they understand that they don't know everything, or they don't know nothing. And the childlike curiosity kicks in, and they're like, oh, okay, well, can you tell me? Can you teach me, right? Um, and this is the part of children that is rarely nourished. Nourished in the way of, instead of talking at them, talking to them. We often talk at our kids and not to our kids. Because if we were talking to our kids, we'd be curious to know more of who they are. You say you know everything about this thing, all right? My favorite was, my son knows how to use this massive knife to cut this massive watermelon. I know how to do this. Okay, how do you do this? You go like this? I'm like, no, this is not how you go. Right? He was like, I think, years
Oh
old
my-
at that time. But that's what I'm saying. Like, they know, they have an idea, but swinging it like this, okay, well, let me help you how to do this a little bit better. How open would you be to that? And when you ask that way, you're not talking down to them. You're talking
Right.
to them as an equal in a way. With someone who has more knowledge, how more receptive and open do you think they would be in actually learning how to use that knife?
Oh,
I can
very.
tell you exactly, right? From my experience, I can tell you they are very open to it. It just, as they grow as teenagers, they are really good at pushing buttons and allowing me to learn all of my assumptions and limiting beliefs and like all shit ton of blocks. I'm like, oh my God, all these lessons in one day, God help me. Right.
Right.
But with that thing with my son, it took him it took me about what, minute, maybe two, to explain it to him, kind of guide him. And then afterwards it was like, no, I do myself, right? And then they go and do that. So yeah, I feel like that's my spiel right there. Um, Bethany, what's coming up for you?
Oh, well, what came up for me was when you're talking about values and how I talked about compassion. Compassion is one of my values. And from this assumptions, from these assumptions, a lot of compassion came and forgiveness came in play for me to heal and grow through these assumptions, to help me reframe the assumption to where it's not that trigger anymore, to where I was talking about earlier that I forgot my train of thought, where as in your journey of life, that same thing's going to be shown to you. But when you really see the growth and the healing, that um, you can see that when you've worked through an assumption, because you're going to respond instead of react, like you're saying, you're going to respond when you've worked through that assumption. And you're going to be like, you know what? For me, it's like, well, how can I show this person compassion? Like an example I had was with that worst case scenario, like, oh, everyone's out to get me. when someone would walk down past my house, instead of it being like, oh, what is their purpose to walk by my house? It's, oh, I hope they have a safe trip. I hope their walk, they are safe. If there's more compassion there. Another example of when I've showed compassion during a time where I worked through something was just on Friday. We had a mouse or something stuck in our wall or stuck in our water heater. I'm not fully sure what happened to it. I can't tell you, but in the past, I would have been mortified. I would have gone to the victim state. I would have been upset. I would have been freaking out. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're here. Like, how, ew, but this time, like, I found myself with compassion where I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could help you. I wish I could get you out of there instead of being so afraid of it. And because I got to be like, I'm the human. This is a small creature. Like, I am more powerful than this thing. Like, why am I letting it overpower me? And this ended up being a metaphor for something that I was working through with my binge eating, with this whole mouse situation. Was so this mouse or whatever it was, I don't know what it was, because it just the sound stopped and it's gone. So my hope is that it got out and it found its way outside and it is thriving and growing. But if not, it served that purpose, but so I've been dealing with this binge eating, this new pattern that I've been working through, and it's been really hard because me coming to realize that this pattern is coming from a generational curse that has been passed down from my family to me, and I'm the one that is strong enough to break it. And that is why it was given to me to work through, because I'm going to break it for this next generation, for the generations to come. And with this, so the new pattern I've talked about in the last couple of weeks, it's eating food for nutrition and nourishment. Well, what does this have to do with that mouse and that sounding, you're asking, right? Well, what the metaphor came to me was, that old belief that was that mouse clawing, trying to get out. And then me going up to it and comforting it, because I did go up. I'm like, oh my gosh, you just got to find your way out. Like, if I could save you, I would, but I can't save you. And that, and metaphorically, was my gremlin speaking to that pattern, that old pattern. Like, hey, like, I know that, like, that's what we felt was safe back then. Like, I'm here for you. But I had to let it go. I had to let that pattern die. And the interesting thing is, when I had that assumption, or not assumption, but when I had that realization where I was like, okay, I need to let this die now. It is time to let it go completely. I cannot live this way. I have to let this curse go. I am tired of struggling and trying to go save this old pattern because it feels safe. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. And so as soon as I decided to let it go, I was actually outside. Now, I liked, when there's an animal and I find it dead, I like to bury it. Well, this animal, since I don't know what happened to it, I couldn't bury it if it passed away. But I had found, now this might be a little gross, TMI to some people, but I found like a piece of a squirrel tail, somehow was magically outside. So I took that metaphor as my old pattern and I buried it. I laid it to rest. I made a loving ceremony out of it. And then after all that, the sound was gone. And it was like, oh, wow. Like, and I know it's like a different circumstance, but the metaphor to it, because as soon as I buried it, I felt like freedom. I felt lightness. I felt brightness. And ever since Sunday, I don't have that desire to go eat food whenever I want. Like, I'm like, okay, well, what can I do instead of eating food? Like, I've realized I focus so much on food that it's like, no, there's so much more to life. Food is just for nutrition and nourishment. That is not what life is about. There's so many more values that I have. And so to end that, I want to say my poems real quick. So I have two. The first one is something I wrote yesterday, so you guys get a little sneak peek. So, resilience is the power to handle challenges with our roots strong and sturdy. Resilience helps us bounce back to the best versions of ourselves today and all days. allowing balance, support, and well-being to flow freely and gracefully to us all. The second one is we're going to go to our vibration of our heart now with that compassion. The vibration of your heart is a beacon for love, connection, and compassion, along with other growing and healing frequencies. Follow these beacons, as it will open your heart to more possibilities. This will also bring more healing, allowing you to feel more lighter and brighter. Love is the antidote. And that is a beautiful way, and for me to kind of end what I was saying, because working through all this stuff, I have a better knowledge, I have more wisdom, I have more joy behind it. I'm able to respond more and be in this moment and just enjoy the journey of life that I'm on and work through the stuff that needs to be worked through when it comes up, and feeling those feelings, because that's important.
Yeah, very important. And also what I wanted to like basically summarize what you've said in the way that I'm seeing it, and in a way that I'm hoping that it will be helpful for other people to see it in this way, is that we get to learn who we are as we go through our journey. And some people might think that this example, what a weird or an interesting way to connect the dots with something entirely different in your own personal life with this experience.
Mhm.
And that is where like the word spirituality comes to mind for me, because a lot of spiritual people, they actually, not a lot, every spiritual person that I know, they're always finding different connections, different synchronicities, different meanings, right? If you're looking for meanings, you're going to find them, and you're going to give things meanings. Assumptions is also giving meaning to a previous experience, giving meaning to this experience, that now this means that this is what's going to happen. So we're continuously going and giving meaning to things, to our experience, to our existence, to our journey. And in doing so, it helps us to start connecting more and more dots in our own life. And most importantly, those dots that we really are dreaming and wishing would fix themselves or resolve, right? In your example, you're talking about binge eating, and then seeing less, getting awarenesses
Mhm.
of your binge eating with something entirely different, which is, something clawing, making noises, and it's like, well, what is that? And then the whole ceremony and going into that and connecting the dots with everything. We get our answers from sometimes in like the most unexpected and weirdest places and experiences. But that's the fun of it. And there will be people that will that are, I don't want to say narrow minded, but I already said it. But so no backsies. There are people who I would refer to as narrow minded, who would see that and be like, what the fuck? That doesn't make sense. That's so stupid. How can you even connect the dots? Like, it doesn't make any sense. This was something else. This was just a mouse. It has nothing to do with you binge eating. Like, really. But in reality, maybe not to them, because they haven't even opened the door to, I don't even know what to call it.
The possibilities. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
door to possibilities, that every single thing that does happen in our life um, does have a meaning to us, whether we are conscious of it or not. And it allows us to understand more of meanings of our existence based on this experience. That it's not, it's like those, small-minded people, like very limited thinking and very like one-dimensional. This is just one thing, one possibility, because they themselves don't see anything else, because they have not grown, haven't gotten there. Uh, but most people do.
Mhm.
And especially in the past 2 years, a lot of people were pushed way outside of the comfort zone. And guess what happens when we're outside of our comfort zone? We grow. So there's so much growth that has happened in the past 2 years. Guys, I feel the growth. In the first year, there was a lot that was dark and heavy, and then people have started doing the work, and that's where the dark and heaviness comes through, from doing the actual work and realizing like, fuck, I need to do something about this. Because for most people it was, I can't be alone with myself and with my own thoughts. So they realize that they can't do that, and a part of them knows that I gotta work on this, I gotta do something about it.
Mhm.
Some people choose to do something about it and learn different things on how to be there, while others continue to ignore it and avoid it and not work through it. And eventually they too will get there. It's just, it will be a longer process.
And also mask it. Some people will mask it. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is where one of my favorite quotes is, if you want to have an easy life, you got to do hard things. And if you want to have a hard life, you'll do easy things.
Mm-hmm.
More or less choose the easy and not the hard. So anyways, thank you for today, Bethany and everybody. As my throat is starting to tickle now, I'm gonna end it right here. If you like these videos that we do, please subscribe, follow, and give it lots of love and comments. And until next time, bye everybody.
Hi guys, don't forget to subscribe.
Exactly, subscribe
and share it with someone that you think will benefit from it as well. We would love to get this out to as many people as possible, because it's medicine. Thank you, everyone. Grateful for you guys.